I'm Taylor Jenkins, and when I stepped into that Harris County courtroom in Houston, my parents were already seated, their smug grins cutting through the tension like a knife. Those cold, triumphant smirks, the same ones that haunted my childhood nightmares, told me they thought they'd already won. Who'd side with me? The daughter they'd abandoned 20 years ago. Over them. The dazzling influencers lighting up Austin's festival circuit with their fake charm. They figured the courtroom was just another stage for their performance, their polished lies ready to steal the spotlight. But this wasn't their show. My billionaire grandma, the energy tycoon who'd raised me like her own, had passed away, leaving her entire fortune hundreds of millions in assets. Every single dime to me. Now. The same people who'd left me crying on her doorstep. My small hands clutching at air as their car sped away, were suing to rip that legacy from me. As I stood before the judge, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the whispers in the gallery. He looked up, his sharp eyes locking onto mine. He paused, leaning forward. "Wait," he said, his voice sharp with sudden recognition. "You're her." The courtroom fell dead silent, the air heavy with anticipation. My parents' smug expressions faltered, their confidence cracking like thin ice. They knew their perfect facade was about to shatter in a way they never saw coming. If you're hooked on family revenge stories that hit you right in the gut, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to catch the twist that turns this battle upside down. It all started when I was 6. On a rainy afternoon in Houston, my mother, Courtney Jenkins, knelt in front of me, her designer coat dripping wet, her smile tight and forced. "Be good for your grandma." "Okay, Taylor," she said, her voice sharp, like she was reading a script. Her perfume stung my nose, too sweet, too fake. My father, Matthew Jenkins, stood by their sleek black SUV, tapping his watch. "Courtney, move it." "We'll miss the Austin flight," he snapped, barely glancing at me. "Flight? Where are you going?" I asked, my small fingers grabbing her sleeve. "Can I come?" She didn't answer, just pulled away, her heels splashing through puddles. "It's just a quick trip." "Sweetheart," she said, not meeting my eyes. "We'll be back soon." "But even at 6?" I caught the lie in her trembling voice. She didn't hug me, didn't look back. My father opened the car door, and she slid inside. The engine roared, tires screeched on the wet driveway, and their SUV vanished past the iron gates of our Houston neighborhood. I ran after them, my sneakers slipping, my throat raw from screaming their names. The rain soaked my clothes, mixing with tears. I couldn't stop. They were gone, chasing their dream of Austin Festival fame, leaving me behind like an unwanted toy. Then a warm hand touched my shoulder. My grandmother, Jasmine Jenkins, knelt beside me, her gray hair damp but her eyes steady. "They don't see your worth, Taylor," she said softly, brushing mud from my knees. "But I do. And you'll never be alone again." She pulled me into her arms, strong despite her age, and carried me back to her sprawling Houston estate, a mansion nestled in the energy tycoon district. Her presence felt like a shield, grounding me as the rain kept falling. Inside, the house was quiet. No staff bustling around, just her, moving with purpose. She sat me at the kitchen counter, my legs dangling from a high stool, and started making grilled cheese sandwiches, the kind I loved with extra cheddar. "You like these, right?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm, like she already knew the answer. I nodded, sniffling, still shaken from the day. She slid a plate in front of me, the bread golden and crisp, and sat across from me, her hands folded. "This house is yours now," she said, "and so is my promise you're home." That night, as thunder rumbled outside, She tucked me into a bed that felt too big, the sheets smelling faintly of lavender. I clutched her hand, scared of the dark, scared they'd never come back. "Will they ever want me again?" I whispered. Grandma Jasmine smoothed my hair, her touch calm but unwavering. "Some people chase the wrong things, Taylor," she said quietly. "But you don't need to chase love. It's right here, and it's real." Her words sank into me, steadying my racing heart. She turned off the lamp, leaving a soft glow from the hallway, and I clung to her promise like a lifeline. The next morning, she woke me early, her voice calling through the door. "Up, Taylor. The world doesn't wait for tears." I dragged myself to the kitchen, where she was already sipping coffee. A stack of papers spread across the counter. She wasn't like the billionaires you see in movies, no flashy parties, no endless staff. Her wealth came from energy deals, pipelines crisscrossing Texas. But she lived with discipline, purpose. "Let's start small," she said, pushing a piggy bank toward me. "Every dollar counts, so let's learn how to make it grow." She turned it into a game sorting coins, counting them, pretending we were running a tiny oil company. I giggled, stacking quarters, not realizing she was teaching me the first lesson of independence: control your own future. That day, I stopped waiting for my parents and started building a new life with the one person who chose me. As the years passed in Houston, life with Grandma Jasmine settled into a routine. She woke me at dawn every morning, her knock firm on my door. "Rise up, Taylor. Opportunities don't sleep in," she'd say, her voice carrying through the quiet estate. I'd shuffle to the kitchen, where she'd have black coffee brewing and the day's oil market reports laid out on the marble island. "Scan this," she'd instruct, pointing to headlines about energy prices and pipeline deals. At first, as a kid, I'd skim the words, confused by terms like crude futures and supply chains, but she made it simple, breaking it down. "See beyond the numbers," she'd explain. "What's the real story? Who gains? Who loses?" We discussed over breakfast, her questions sharp, pushing me to think critically about the energy world she dominated. Her empire, built on smart trades and honest partnerships, wasn't about glamour, it was about strategy and ethics. By the time I hit my teens, those mornings evolved into deeper lessons. Grandma Jasmine took me to her office downtown, a sleek tower overlooking the Houston skyline. Employees nodded respectfully as we walked in, their eyes curious about the girl at her side. "This is my granddaughter," she'd introduce, her hand on my shoulder. "She's learning the ropes." Inside her corner suite, she'd pull up charts on her computer, showing real-time data from her company's operations. "Money and energy is volatile," she'd warn. "One bad deal can sink you. So always verify the facts." I watched her handle calls with suppliers, her tone fair but unyielding, demanding transparency. She never cut corners, even when competitors did. "Integrity builds empires that last," she'd say, her eyes intense. Those sessions taught me more than school ever could: how to spot risks in contracts, calculate margins, and negotiate without bluffing. Weekends brought a different focus. Grandma Jasmine drove us to the local community center she funded in a working-class Houston neighborhood. While other tycoons wrote checks for tax breaks, she showed up, sleeves rolled up, teaching kids basic finance. We'd sit with groups of 10-year-olds, using play money to simulate budgets. "Power isn't hoarding wealth," she'd tell me as we prepared materials. "It's lifting others so they don't fall." I helped lead sessions, explaining simple concepts like saving versus spending, drawing from her stories of starting small in the oil boom. The kids listened, eyes wide, and I'd see her pride when one grasped a point. "You're good at this," she'd whisper on the drive home. Those outings grounded me, showing that her billions meant responsibility, not just luxury. One evening, when I was 16, I flipped on the TV in the living room, channel surfing after homework. A reality show about Austin influencers caught my eye, their lavish festival lives, all staged smiles and sponsored deals. There they were, mother and father, laughing on screen, promoting some lifestyle brand at a music event. Mother's hair was perfect, father's jokes scripted, but their eyes held that same emptiness I'd glimpsed years ago. I froze, remote in hand, a knot twisting in my stomach. Grandma Jasmine walked in, noticed the screen, and sat beside me without a word. "Do you wonder about them?" she asked finally. I shook my head, but my voice cracked. "Not really." She nodded, then stood and fetched a locked box from her study. "For when you're ready," she said, handing it over. Inside were documents, old loan agreements showing they'd borrowed from her early on, never repaid, with notes in her handwriting about their broken promises. "This is your shield," she added. "Truth protects better than wishes." I closed the box, feeling a mix of anger and resolve, knowing she'd prepared me for whatever came next. Years later, on a quiet morning in her study, I found Grandma Jasmine slumped over her desk, her reading glasses perched on the edge of a notebook, her hand still gripping a pen. The room smelled of fresh coffee and old books, but the air felt wrong, too still, too heavy. I touched her shoulder, calling her name, but she didn't stir. Panic rose in my chest as I checked her pulse, already knowing the woman who'd built me from scratch was gone. Her heart finally giving out after decades of battles in the energy world. I sank to the floor, numb, staring at the screen of her laptop where a video file sat open. It was dated the night before, titled "For Taylor." I clicked play, her face filling the screen, tired but resolute. "If you're watching this, I've moved on," she said, her voice steady. "Remember, truth in business and life is your strongest asset. Don't let greed poison it." The recording ended with her signing off, a final nod to the lessons she'd drilled into me. Grief hit like a wave, but her words anchored me, even in that moment. The funeral turned into a spectacle, drawing Houston's elite to the estate grounds. Energy executives in tailored suits mingled with politicians, all paying respects to Jasmine Jenkins, the tycoon who'd reshaped Texas oil with her ironclad deals, flowers piled high, white lilies and roses scenting the air under a clear sky. I stood at the front, greeting guests, my black dress simple compared to the flashy attire around me. Whispers floated through the crowd about her legacy, her billions, her unbreakable will. Then I spotted them, mother and father, arriving late from Austin, dressed in designer morning clothes, sunglasses shielding their faces. Mother dabbed at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief, her sobs theatrical, drawing sympathetic glances from onlookers. Father checked his phone discreetly, his expression bored. Like this was just another event on their festival calendar. They approached me after the eulogy, their first words in years. "Taylor, you've grown so much," Mother said, tilting her head with a practiced smile. I stepped back, my voice even. "You remembered my face. That's something." Her expression flickered, but she pressed on. "We're here for family." I echoed the word. "Family. You traded that for spotlights." Father's eyes narrowed. "Always so bitter," he muttered, before tension escalated. Her lawyer, James Patterson, gathered us in the estate's conference room for the will reading. Guests hovered outside, curiosity buzzing. James cleared his throat, adjusting his tie. Jasmine Jenkins leaves her entire estate, including the Houston mansion, energy holdings, and liquid assets valued at hundreds of millions to her granddaughter. Taylor Jenkins. Gasps rippled through the room. Mother's hand flew to her mouth. "That can't be right," she stammered. Father slammed a fist on the table. "She wasn't in her right mind at the end," James continued, unflinching. "She also included a message for her son and daughter-in-law. Those who borrow trust and never repay have already lost their share." Mother's face paled, her voice rising. "We're her blood. This is theft." James met her gaze. "She gave you chances to prove yourselves. You squandered them." I sat frozen, fingers gripping the chair, watching their glamour peel away. As people filed out, Mother's composure shattered. "You'll pay for this, Taylor," she hissed, leaning close. "That money was ours by right." I looked her in the eye. "Rights you forfeited long ago." Outside, the estate gates swung shut behind them, the Texas sun casting long shadows. In that instant, I felt the weight of her absence, but also the strength she'd left behind. A week after the funeral, a thick envelope landed on my doorstep with no return address. I picked it up, my name scrawled in bold letters, and tore it open. The first page hit like a slap, a legal notice from Mother and Father, suing me for undue influence over Grandma Jasmine's will. They claimed I'd manipulated her, isolated her in her final months, interfered with her medical care, and coerced the estate transfer to cut them out. My hands shook as I scanned the details, their accusations twisting everyday moments like helping her with emails or joining doctor visits into sinister plots. For a moment, the room spun, the weight of their betrayal crashing down again. But I forced myself to breathe, recalling her video message about truth as an asset. This was their desperate grab, predictable in its greed. But I wasn't the vulnerable kid they'd left behind. I'd face this head-on, using the foundation she'd built. Word spread like wildfire. By evening, headlines exploded across online news sites and social feeds. Energy tycoon's granddaughter sued by estranged parents for hundreds of millions in inheritance battle. Paparazzi swarmed the estate gates, their cameras flashing relentlessly through the iron bars, turning my quiet Houston home into a siege zone. I pulled the curtains tight, but their shouts pierced the windows. "Taylor, did you brainwash your grandma? What's the dirt on the will? Any comment on your parents' claims?" Social media erupted with speculation. Austin influencers piling on with posts, subtly backing Mother and Father, painting them as victims robbed of their due. Their festival fame amplified the chaos, transforming our private family rift into viral entertainment, with hashtags trending overnight. I stayed inside, avoiding the glare, but the isolation gnawed at me. Memories of Grandma surfaced in the silence, her steady guidance now my only shield against the storm. The pressure mounted, but it sharpened my focus. This wasn't just about money, it was about defending her choices. The next day, my lawyer, Christopher Ward, called early. His voice was calm and measured, the kind forged from navigating countless corporate disputes. "We need to meet ASAP, Taylor. They're filing fast in Harris County, leveraging your father's old connections there." I agreed, and we met in his downtown office, a sleek setup with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking bustling Houston streets. Christopher spread the lawsuit papers across his conference table, his pen marking key sections as he dissected their claims. "They're pushing the isolation angle hard," he said, flipping pages. "Alleging you blocked their access and swayed her doctors." I sat across from him, my jaw set. "She chose to keep them at arm's length after their history. I was just there for her." He nodded, pulling out a notepad. "Let's counter with evidence. What assets do we have?" I produced the video file from her study, the one she'd recorded in solitude. We watched it on his screen, her image flickering as she affirmed her mental clarity and deliberate decision to entrust me with the estate. "This establishes intent beyond doubt," Christopher noted, pausing to jot details. Then I brought up the box she'd given me years earlier, filled with loan agreements documenting mother and father's unpaid debts to her sums they'd borrowed for their Austin ventures and never returned. He reviewed the papers carefully, his expression turning satisfied. "This flips the narrative, shows their motive for contesting. We'll incorporate it to dismantle their credibility." We spent hours outlining our response, compiling timelines from her email logs, gathering affidavits from staff confirming no coercion, and preparing medical records to prove her independence. By the session's end, our plan felt ironclad, layered facts designed to expose their fabrications. That night, as I paced the estate's empty halls, my phone buzzed with a blocked number. I hesitated but answered, and Mother's voice slithered through, cold and venomous. "Enjoying the attention. Taylor, it's only the beginning." Her tone dripped with false sweetness, masking the edge beneath. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded, my grip tightening on the device. "Because you stole our future," she shot back. "We'll drag you through every court until you're penniless and ruined." The threat echoed, stirring old fears, but I pushed back. "Go ahead. The facts will expose you." She let out a sharp laugh, laced with bitterness. "We'll see who breaks first." The line went dead, leaving me in silence. I sat in the study, staring at Grandma's old desk, her absence a void, but her teachings a weapon. The anxiety lingered, but resolve burned brighter. They'd ignited this fight, and I'd finish it with the truth she'd armed me with. The first hearing arrived under stormy skies in downtown Houston. Reporters clogged the courthouse steps, umbrellas shielding cameras as they jostled for shots of the high-profile inheritance dispute. Inside the Harris County courtroom, the atmosphere crackled with tension, the wooden benches filled with onlookers drawn by the scandal. Mother and father positioned themselves at the plaintiff's table, their outfits meticulously chosen, mother in a sharp black blazer, father in a navy suit to project victimhood wrapped in sophistication. Their lawyer, Andrew Brooks, stood tall, exuding assurance as he organized his notes. Christopher touched my arm as we settled in. "Breathe steady," he murmured. "We've got the high ground." The bailiff announced the judge, and Michael Ellis took the bench, his presence commanding immediate silence. He adjusted his robe, his experienced gaze sweeping the room. When it settled on me, a subtle pause followed, his brow furrowing briefly. Andrew opened strong, his voice resonating. "Your Honor, this is a blatant case of exploitation," he declared. "Taylor Jenkins systematically cut off her grandmother from family, dominated her daily affairs, and engineered the will to seize hundreds of millions." He waved documents theatrically, framing routine care as calculated control. Christopher countered evenly in his statement. "These allegations are baseless, Your Honor. We'll demonstrate Jasmine Jenkins's decisions were voluntary and informed." The back and forth began, Andrew summoning a housekeeper who'd worked at the estate. "Did Taylor restrict visitors?" he probed. The witness hesitated. "She handled schedules sometimes." Christopher cross-examined sharply. "But Jasmine approved all changes." "Correct. And you received bonuses under her direct orders." The witness admitted yes, undermining Andrew's narrative. Judge Ellis leaned in, questioning details himself, his notes growing. The shift came mid-morning. Judge Ellis halted a line of questioning, polishing his glasses. "Miss Jenkins, approach," he said, his tone measured. Murmurs spread as I walked forward. The marble floor cool under my shoes. Up close, his expression softened. "I clerked for Jasmine Jenkins in my early days," he confided. "She mentored me on discerning fact from facade in energy disputes." The revelation stunned the gallery. Father's jaw tightened. Proceed with caution. The judge added louder. This court values the principles she stood for. Andrew's rhythm broke, his objections sounding forced. Christopher pressed the advantage. We present key evidence health evaluations affirming Jasmine's competence, access logs showing no barriers, and this recording. The projector hummed to life, displaying Grandma in her study. My estate goes to Taylor to preserve it from past betrayals, she articulated clearly. Whispers grew. Andrew interjected. Manipulative sentiment. Your Honor irrelevant. The judge overruled briskly. Next, Christopher summoned Brianna Foster, Grandma's trusted ally in business circles. Brianna swore in, her posture confident. I witnessed Courtney and Matthew soliciting funds from Jasmine repeatedly, she recounted. They assured repayment for their Austin pursuits but defaulted, straining their relationship. She referenced the loan records I'd provided, dates aligning with their rise in festival circles. Jasmine expressed regret, but resolved to protect her legacy. Andrew cross-examined aggressively. Isn't this hearsay? Brianna shook her head. I was present for several discussions. Her testimony held, bolstering our side. By afternoon, cracks widened. During Brianna's account of a specific unmet repayment, Mother bolted upright. That's not true. She promised us more time, she yelled, her finger jabbing. Chaos erupted briefly. Reporters scribbled furiously. Judge Ellis slammed his gavel. Order Mrs. Jenkins. Another disruption and you'll be removed. Father yanked her down. His face flushed, but the outburst had exposed their raw edges to the room. Christopher concluded. The plaintiff's story unravels under examination. I locked eyes with Mother, her glare fierce, but I held steady. The hearing wrapped, the balance tipping visibly. The final day of the trial dawned in Houston with a restless energy. The Harris County courtroom overflowed with spectators, their whispers a constant hum as journalists crowded the back. Pens poised over notepads, cameras discreetly angled, the wooden benches creaked under the weight of anticipation, the air heavy with the scent of polished oak and fresh ink. Mother and Father sat stiffly at the plaintiff's table, their faces composed but strained. The cracks in their Austin-crafted facade now visible. Andrew Brooks shuffled papers, his earlier swagger dulled by the previous session's blows. Christopher sat beside me, his suit crisp, his expression steady. This is it, he murmured, adjusting his tie. Her truth carries us. I nodded, my heart pounding but anchored by the memory of Grandma's voice, her lessons a quiet strength in my veins. Judge Ellis entered, his black robe billowing, his silver hair catching the morning light streaming through high windows. He settled at the bench, his gaze methodical, scanning the packed room before resting briefly on me. The bailiff called for silence, and the tension tightened like a coiled spring. Judge Ellis opened with a review, his voice deliberate. This court has examined extensive evidence medical reports confirming Jasmine Jenkins's mental acuity, communication logs showing open access, a video statement of intent, and credible testimony from her confidant, Brianna Foster. He flipped through his notes. Each page turned deliberate. The plaintiffs allege undue influence, claiming Taylor Jenkins coerced the will's creation. He looked toward Mother and Father, his eyes narrowing slightly. Yet their case rests on speculation, not substance. Andrew shifted, ready to interject, but a glance from the judge silenced him. The defense has presented clear proof of Jasmine's independent decisions, supported by her own words and documented history. He paused, letting the weight settle. Andrew rose, his tone urgent. Your Honor, we maintain the will was drafted under pressure, reflecting bias against my clients. Christopher countered swiftly. The evidence refutes that. Your Honor, Jasmine's video and Brianna's account expose the plaintiff's motives, unpaid debts, and broken trust. The gallery murmured, heads turning. Judge Ellis raised a hand. I've heard enough. The court rules no undue influence occurred. The will stands, awarding the estate valued at hundreds of millions to Taylor Jenkins. Case dismissed. The gavel's echo cut through the room, sharp and final. Gasps erupted, cameras flashed, and reporters scrambled to capture the moment. I exhaled, relief flooding me, though my chest still tightened with the gravity of it all. As people began to disperse, Mother surged forward, her heels clicking furiously on the marble floor. She grabbed my wrist, her grip tight, her manicured nails biting into my skin. Her eyes blazed, voice low and venomous. You think you've won, Taylor. You owe us, you stole our life. I yanked my arm free, meeting her stare. You left me first. This is justice, not theft. Father stepped in, his voice gruff, cutting through her tirade. Don't play the victim, kid. We built that empire's foundation. I faced him, unwavering. You borrowed and burned it. Grandma rebuilt alone. Their faces twisted anger, desperation, defeat. I turned away. Christopher guiding me through the crowd, past the flurry of microphones and shouted questions. Outside, Houston's skyline gleamed under a clearing sky, the clouds parting as if mirroring the resolution below. I didn't look back. The courthouse doors closing on their fading protests. The fallout came swiftly. Within days, headlines pivoted. Austin influencers crumble in court. Debt history exposed. The media dug deeper, unearthing details from Brianna's testimony about the loans mother and father had taken from Grandma, never repaid. Their festival empire unraveled, sponsors pulled out, citing reputational risk, canceling contracts worth thousands for Austin events they'd headlined. Social platforms turned brutal. Their follower counts plummeted as fans shared screenshots of the exposés, hashtags like Sonic Jenkins scandal trending for weeks. A local news outlet ran a feature, From Fame to Failure, the Jenkins Fall, detailing their financial overreach. By spring, court filings revealed their Chapter 7 bankruptcy forced liquidation of their Austin penthouse, luxury cars, even designer wardrobes auctioned to settle debts. Public records showed creditors claiming millions, their lifestyle collapsing under the weight of their own choices. The influencer scene shunned them. Old contacts dodging calls, invitations drying up. Houston's elite, once cordial at Grandma's funeral, now whispered of their disgrace, their social exile complete. I returned to the estate, its quiet halls a refuge after the public storm. Grandma's study became my sanctuary, her desk untouched, her book still open to pages she'd marked. I replayed her video often, her voice steady. Truth is your strongest asset. Each viewing grounded me, reminding me of the principles she'd instilled: integrity over greed, responsibility over indulgence. The victory wasn't about the money. It was about honoring her choices, protecting what she'd built from those who'd squandered her trust. Sitting there, I traced the edges of her old ledgers, feeling her presence in the numbers and notes. She'd prepared me not just to win, but to carry her legacy forward with purpose. I began planning expanding her community programs, funding financial literacy for Houston's youth, ensuring her empire served others as she'd intended. This journey taught me that greed blinds, but truth endures. Mother and father chased fleeting fame, but their choices caught up, leaving them with nothing but consequences. Integrity, as Grandma showed, builds something lasting: trust, legacy, impact. I'm grateful to you, my listeners, for following this story to its end. Your time means everything. What do you think? Have you faced family betrayals or fought for what's right? Share your experiences in the comments. Hit like if this resonated. And subscribe for more tales of justice and revenge. Your thoughts keep these stories alive.